Guerra nas Estrelas, Caçadores da Arca Perdida, Corpos Ardentes, O Turista Acidental, O Reencontro, O Império Contra-Ataca, O Guarda-Costas. O que todos esses filmes de sucesso têm em comum pode ser uma surpresa para muita gente. Lawrence Kasdan, um dos diretores de maior versatilidade em Hollywood. Saudado desde seu primeiro filme, Corpos Ardentes, como um dos maiores talentos do cinema americano, Lawrence Kasdan tem uma carreira brilhante como roteirista, diretor e produtor. Eu conversei com Kasdan na sala de edição, onde ele montou seu último filme, Wyatt Earp, um épico americano. Com vocês, Lawrence Kasdan. Lawrence Kasdan, such a pleasure to talk to you. You know, you are a very interesting director here. And you said once you used to watch 2 movies a day.
At least.
At least. Were you a film buff? What?
Yes.
Obsessed with
I was.
cinema?
I love movies.
Yeah.
And I grew up in a small town in the eastern part of the country. And we didn't get too many movies. You know, we got the Hollywood movies of the 50s. But when I went to university in Michigan, there were all these films there. There were all these film series. And suddenly I could see all the foreign films that I'd never been able to see. And I could see all the old American films I'd never seen. And I went crazy. I mean, that's what I did instead of going to class, you know.
It was like a discovery of...
Yeah, it was everything I had hoped, because I already loved movies going there. But then I saw what movies could be, you know, which was anything.
And what kind of movies you like the most?
Well, all kinds, you know. That's why I don't have any favorites. That's why I worked in a lot of different kind of genres and very personal films. I liked the films of Kurosawa, and I liked the films of John Ford and Howard Hawks and Francois Truffaut and Ingmar Bergman and Antonioni. It's anybody, you know.
When your first movie as a director was Body Hit, which was the, you know, you showed your rival or a strong talent. Was Billy Wilder an influence?
Well, yes, and Billy Wilder made wonderful films, and Double Indemnity obviously had an impact on me, and is very much there in Body Heat, as is a lot of the film noir, you know, which interested me, a whole genre of film that came out after the war in the United States, and concerned the relations between men and women, between our daylight lives and our nighttime lives, between our desires, you know, and our morals.
When you really decide to become a director?
Started very early, you know, when I was 14 years old, I saw Lawrence of Arabia, and it had an enormous impact on me. And I already liked movies by then. I was already having the best times in movie theaters, but when I saw Lawrence, I thought, what a way to spend your life. And my brother, who was older than I, said, you know, some people do spend their life doing this. You know, you can actually make a living doing that. And then when I went to college and I was already writing, I thought, you know, the way I could become a director is by writing, because I had some skill as a writer.
Do you enjoy to watch your own movies?
I'm proud of the movies that I've made, and each movie has been a kind of wonderful life experience for me. And in fact, that's the most important part of it for me, is because you know, it takes me a year and a half to make these movies, to write and direct them. It's a big chunk of my life. So the most important thing to me is what kind of experience do I have while I'm making them. It's more important to me.
The process.
Yes, the process, much more important to me than what happens at the end, you know. And I'm not sure...
The result is different. Yeah, I mean,
yes.
it's,
And the result really changes over the years. You know, some of my favorite movies in history were badly received or, you know, barely noticed, and now everyone considers them classics. So I don't think that the immediate response to things is necessarily the important one.
But you always had this wisdom about your...
Oh, I don't know. I knew early on that the process was everything. I was smart enough to know that. you know, I think your ideas about what you want to come out of the end change over the years, you know. But I knew that living that kind of life and working with those kind of people was the most important part.
When you see the result, anyway, as an obsessive person, are you very hard on yourself? Do you criticize? Is it a painful process, or you are...
Well, you know, the reality is that you can't see your own movie for about 5 years. You know, you're so close to it.
So involved.
Yes. And every time you look at a shot, you remember the day and why you put the camera there and the kind of feeling you had about the actor that day and the kind of mood they were in, the kind of mood you were in. And it's very hard to see it the way any fresh viewer sees it. But about 5 years later, you can go back
and understand what you
Yeah, you can sort of understand, and sometimes you're surprised by what you've done. Sometimes you think, I did that wrong, or I wish that were better, and sometimes you're pleasantly surprised, and you say, that's pretty good.
What do you think makes a great movie?
You know, a great movie is different for each person, of course. But for me, I studied English literature when I was in college, and the values of English literature, the values that interested me about art, which were detail, character, you know, some part of art that could approximate life and how complicated I find life to be. And so for me, great movies are the ones that invoke in us feelings about our lives and how mysterious our lives are.
What would you like your movies to do to people?
I would like them to think about their lives, you know. I would like them to see something on the screen that stirs them up in a way and makes them thoughtful about their own lives, even if the life on the screen is very different from you know, their own life. I think that good art is always relevant in some way to the audience, you know. So I want them to see something that they see to be true up there, you know, and it can be in any form. But they should feel there's something true there for me, and it's useful to me, and it makes my life richer. The way that a great painting makes your life richer, a good piece of music makes your life richer. You hear a rock and roll song, and
even adversity makes.
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. You know, it's only recently that in American movies that we got this wrong idea, I think, that only movies that make you feel good are worth doing. Because some of the greatest movies don't make you feel good. They make you think, or they make you hurt, or they make you remember something that's been painful for you in your life. Yeah.
But you've been very courageous doing this kind of movies, but do you think that the market accepts this?
I hope so. You know, I'm not sure I have any choice, because I don't seem to be interested in the other kind of movies. And so far, you know, I've always been able to make my movies, and so the studios have made enough money off them, so they keep letting me do it, you know. And when they stop, I guess I'll have to think, is there another approach, or is this possible for me? But maybe they won't stop. Maybe I'll get tired of making movies before they get tired of me.
Oh, good, great. I hope you don't. I mean, I hope you keep doing. Do you think your movies can change people's point of view?
I think it's very hard to change people. I mean, I think that we become the kind of people we are because of everything that happens to us from the time we're born, you know. So it's unusual, I think, for a work of art to really change people, but it can have an impact on people. It can give them a moment's pause. If they have one thought that they might not have had, or if they are brought in touch with some feeling that has been buried, you know, by a movie, then I guess you could say you've changed their life in a tiny little way, you know. The world has changed, and it doesn't seem to be getting any better, you know. I mean, things seem to be getting worse. But I think maybe the truth is that there's always been a struggle of people struggling to lead decent lives in situations that are very difficult. And that was true in the 60s and it's true in the 90s. In America, in Hollywood, there's almost been, they've given up the idea that movies can be art, really. They've become
more skeptical, more...
It's very cynical in a way.
Cynical.
That, you know, it's the production of entertainment. And the definition of entertainment has gotten very narrow. So there's a difference certainly in Hollywood, because in the 60s and the early 70s, very challenging, wonderful movies were being made. And there was a kind of embrace of movies as an art form that was very powerful. Now, movies are considered a commercial venture that is potentially very lucrative. You know, those are two very different things.
How to balance, you know, between art and lots of money?
Well, sometimes you know, an artistic film does very well, and there's always that chance, and I guess that's why they keep supporting it somewhat, you know. Sometimes there's no difference between art and commerciality. When there is, then you just have to sort of make enough money to get the next one done, you know.
Are you concerned about the commercial success of a movie also when you...
Sure, you know, because I want to maintain my freedom. You know, I've had total freedom to do what I want since the very beginning. I've been lucky. And no one's ever said, make this picture or cut it in a certain way or cast it in a certain way. And I want to maintain that. But I'll only do so much to maintain that freedom, because there's a point at which you cut off your nose to spite your face, you know, where you make a compromise thinking you're protecting your future, but what you've really done is compromise your life.
Your movies, Accidental Tourist, Big Chill, Grand Canyon, they all ask questions, they ask reflection. And it seems to be part of your search in life.
It is. That is why, it's one of the reasons why I think it's such a great job, you know, because you get to do your work and make a living, but you get to explore your life at the same time, you know, because I write and direct the films. It's very personal for me. And the issues that are in my movies are the issues that are in my life. So there's no distinction between those two things for me. And I guess that's why I have never approached it as a commercial undertaking, you know, where I'm creating a product, you know. Instead, I'm investigating this very mysterious world. Los Angeles today, the United States today, is, if anything, more violent than the time in which Wyatt Earp lived. At that time, it seemed like it was a violent place in the United States after the Civil War, but no more violent than it is today. We live in a society that is dominated and heavily influenced by guns, and we have always, from the time of the expansion west, guns have been the companions of the people that settled the land. And now that we live in supposedly more civilized times, we have not lost this legacy of guns, and it has taken a tragic cost on this country. I consider myself a humanist. I believe in the potential for good between people. And I think that my approach is a kind of mixture of, you know, a sort of rational approach, you know, where you hope that things will work in a reasonable manner and a rational way, and a passionate approach, because to me, emotions are terribly important, and that's what rules us. It's not our mind that rules us, it's our hearts that rule us. And sometimes our hearts lead us into great things, wonderful things. And sometimes our hearts lead us into ugliness and vengeance and you know, conflict. So it's, you know, we're so complicated. And no one person is any one thing. No one nation is any one thing. You know, we're just boiling all the time with all these sort of conflicting feelings about things.
Maybe this is the most interesting part of us.
Yes.
As a director, do you always know exactly what you want? I mean, are you assaulted by doubt in the middle of the process? How is your creative process?
Maybe I should be more assaulted. I don't know. To me, it's very stimulating. You know, you get there very early in the morning, and you've written, if in my case, I've usually written the script, but even if I haven't, and you have a problem for the day, is to shoot that material that day. There are hundreds of interpretations you could give to the material. And the job of the director is to be the one who knows what the whole piece is about, you know.
Has the concept.
Yes, he has the whole picture in mind, and he knows that this is only one piece, and it shouldn't be too much this, and it shouldn't be too little of that, you know. It has to be in this range. But within that range, there are a million good ideas, and everyone has them, the actors, the crew, hopefully me, you know. And so there's a sorting out that goes on. So, you know, it's a very stimulating and busy and time-pressured job. And I don't find that I have much time for doubt, you know? Sometimes I'm surprised. I say, I hadn't thought of that, and is that right? You know, I'm not sure. But I find it sort of invigorating rather than scary.
When you were working, are you calm, tense? You look very calm, I mean. You don't look anxious. Are you anxious?
I think my manner is calm. And on the set, I don't like yelling, you know, and I don't like fighting, and I don't like tension. Because I think people do better work when they're relaxed. But, you know, inside you're always there's a lot of energy there, you know, and sometimes it doesn't always communicate itself, but...
What makes you lose control?
I think there are, you know, it's hard to know about yourself. What are the buttons, you know, that can be pushed that just make you lose control? And I think, you know, I've been accused of being kind of a control freak, you know, and not just wanting to control the process, but to control the atmosphere around the process. I think so. I mean, for me, I think it may be the only way. You know, I may not have a choice. But, you know, certain things make me very emotional, and they usually have to do with injustice, you know, with people being treated badly. That makes me kind of crazy, you know.
What do you think are the most important qualities in an actor?
In an actor? The kind of actors that I'm drawn to, the most important things are simplicity, you know. I like people who can achieve their effects very simply, you know, that a performance is put together with the thousands of little, very clear facets, you know, like a mosaic. But not, each facet should not be multicolored. It should be very clear and simple, you know. So I like clarity and I like simplicity. And then if you build enough little pieces that are clear and simple, the overall picture can be enormously complex. So that's what I look for in an actor.
You have a funny story with Kevin Costner. You cut him from your movie, The Big Chill. And did you feel guilty at the time?
I did. I felt terrible when I cut Kevin out of The Big Chill.
I guess
and
so.
I called him over to tell him about it, and I said, look, I feel terrible. I've cut this whole section of the movie out. And he said, don't feel terrible. He said, this was a great experience for me. And he had worked with some veteran actors that he admired very much. You know, we had rehearsed for a month. He said, this is the best experience I ever had as an actor, and I know now what kind of actor I want to be. So don't feel bad, and we'll do something else. In fact,
you've done lots, but do you think Wyatt Earp is Kevin's revenge?
Kevin is extraordinary in Wyatt Earp. It's an amazing performance. And, you know, for me, it's a culmination of our friendship over 12, 13 years, you know.
You are a great writer as well. And how is to write with someone else?
It's fun to write with someone else because Writing is very lonely, and I think the hardest part of the work. Directing is physically demanding and tiring, but very much fun. But writing is not fun. Writing is the most intense work there is, because only the writer starts with nothing, you know. He's like an inventor, you know, who starts with a blank table or a blank page and must create out of the air. Everyone else who follows him, you know, has something to work on. They say, oh, well, it takes place in a gas station and these people are there and we know we've got to dress them, and that's much easier.
When you wrote Grand Canyon with your wife,
Yeah.
is it easy for a couple to work together?
It was in that case, because the movie really evolved over years of talking about the issues that are in the movie. And it had to do with our life in Los Angeles and our life in America, and with having a son who was about to leave our home. And it was so close to us, and the issues were so important to us, that the movie really sort of flowed naturally out. It was very satisfying work.
What is, in your opinion, the most difficult thing in a relationship?
I think it's stamina, you know. I think that what draws us into relationships is the excitement of something new, you know. That's all our ideas about romance are, about newness and surprise. So when you have a relationship that lasts a long time, you have to make it new all the time, or you have to take great pleasure in its length, you know, in the fact that you have survived together, that you've been through a lot, that you've been up and down, and yet have committed to each other in a way that's long-term.
After doing screenplays of, you know, hits, great screenplays, you said that you want to direct your own movies. You don't want anybody to direct your screenplays. Why?
Because when someone else directs your screenplay, it's always different than you thought. When you write a screenplay, you make the movie in your head.
You have the images.
Yeah, the images and the tone. You know how the jokes should play, and you know where the important moments are. And when someone else takes that screenplay and directs it, even if they do a good job of it, it's different. And you always feel the pain of that difference.
Have you had any bad experience with?
I've had several bad experiences, but I've had very good experiences too, you know. The screenplay I wrote for Raiders of the Lost Ark, Steven Spielberg made a great movie out of it, you know. I'm very proud of some of the things I've written that other people have directed, but it's always hard. When you meet directors, you see that there are all different kinds of people, and it's very hard to know what's common among them. I think that the good directors have a vision of the whole, that they are able to communicate over the long run to many different kinds of people. They may communicate it in different ways. They may yell, and they may scream, or they may be quiet, or they may, you know, be reasonable. But all the good directors are able to maintain that vision through what is a very, you know, uproarious process, the making of a film. But the good directors, you can always tell that they knew what they were doing.
Are you afraid of something?
I'm afraid of a lot of things. I think when you care about something, then fear can come in there. You know, you worry about losing it, whether it's someone you love, or you know, being able to do the work that you love, or, you know, that can be fearful. But as you say, fear is a block from the good things in life. You know, fear is almost always in our minds. It's not out here in the world, you know. There are dangerous things in the world, but they usually can be destroyed by your mind. You know, you can go forward and say, I refuse to be afraid. And so, you know, I think you have to fight the fear all the time.
I hope you always find your track and keep doing all these beautiful movies. And
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much for your interview.
Thank you.
Nice.